The game's main theme being acceptance isn't the issue because there are some genuinely nice moments, and I'm not saying that you can't have other characters work with Jin, but at the bare minimum he should have a conversation with the people he's working with about what he's done to them. For example, in The Walking Dead Season 6, Negan kills Glenn and leaves his wife a widow and his son fatherless, but later in the series he was placed in a similar situation and understands the pain that he put Maggie through. So because of this, he takes it upon himself to save her son. Maggie makes it clear that she's grateful to Negan and that while he's earned his place with the main characters, she can't just forgive him for what he did. She doesn't even want to hate him and acknowledges the fact that he's changing, but the memory of Glenn hurts too much. You wouldn't even need to change the main theme of the story to make this happen. Just have Lars and Jin speak about it. It would take only like 2 seconds. And Jin should either be imprisoned by the end of the story or offer himself up to the authorities. The answer to Kazuya's philosophy simply being the power of friendship really weakens the first chapter in retrospect. I mean, maybe if the answer was more so entrusting people with the future and that one man can't bear the weight of the world on his own, similar to how it was in Naruto, it wouldn't be so goofy. This seems to be what they were going for based off of Jun's dialogue to Jin, but it's poorly executed and Jun herself is heavily underutilized, but I'll have more words for her later on. I wasn't expecting the main villain to get beaten up with the power of friendship. It's like in MKX when Johnny and Cassie beat up Shinnok with the power of love. You know, just not as offensive or goofy. The stakes that Kazuya raised in the beginning of the game are only there for Chapter 1 and Chapter 1 alone. Someone please tell me why on God's earth are there massive groups of people cheering for him? As established before, people know about Heihachi's backstory and know how he tried to fight the devil. There were press conferences and world leader meetings upon the discovery of Kazuya's devil form, and if the public seriously forgot about it like Tekken 7 comedically suggested, people saw Kazuya transform once again on live TV. People should despise him or be afraid of him. When Cell threatened to blow up the planet if he won the Cell games, people weren't cheering for him to fight. The world was scared shitless. As a matter of fact, even after Cell gave the coordinates to where the Cell games would take place, only the Z Fighters and some reporters showed up. There weren't large groups of people watching for their entertainment. In case you forgot, Kazuya is threatening to blow up countries if participants lose in the tournament. Say Paul lost to Kuma and their fight took place in America. You got this big ass group of people watching. They just signed a death sentence. Or at the very least that's what should have happened because we never get to see him destroy anything. Shouldn't there be a preliminary of some sort held by the country itself to find the best fighter so some dumbass who thinks they can fight doesn't end up getting everyone killed? The story itself never specifically says that those who compete in the finals sacrifice their country, just that if you lose in general, the whole country gets punished. Hwoarang lost to Jin. Korea should be gone. We never get to see Kazuya destroy anything on screen, even though he very well has the power to do so. Could have helped keep things serious. Look at the Cell games, the Chunin exams, or Battle City. Think about how serious those arcs were. That's the kind of tone that this tournament should have had, but as it currently stands, it feels like the beginning portion of the Tournament of Power. But at the very least, that tournament showed Zeno destroying things on screen to maintain stakes. Once again, we have a story where the protagonist gets a free pass for their past actions and the villain is just evil for the sake of being evil. I have no idea what the obsession is with making the Mishima sympathetic or trying to justify their actions when the original Mishima, aside from Jinpachi, who had understandable reasons for doing what he did, gets written off as an irredeemable villain. I've already talked about how Bandai Namco has completely bastardized Kazuya's character and I don't want to just repeat myself. What I will say though is that Kazuya is a terrible villain. His plan is to make humanity fight against each other, but how is he going to achieve this? I thought he wanted to destroy everything. I also thought he wanted the rest of his devil back from Jin, but I guess he doesn't need that anymore. During the Colosseum scene, there's this weird purple aura around the crowd. What, was this Kazuya mind controlling everyone? Was that the energy from Jin and Kazuya's presence? I don't know, this story never says anything, so I'm just here wondering. And we have a massive problem in the story where the main villain is too stupid to win. Many of the fights in Tekken 8 have problems. I already talked about the problems in the opening fight of the game, but they are apparent everywhere. I'm going to try to speed through these as fast as I can, but if you want an example of a poor fight scene, look no further than the Claudio fake-out death. Claudio was introduced in Tekken 7 as an exorcist, who somehow had the power to destroy the devil. Now, this isn't exactly a new concept, as the idea of destroying or taming the devil was introduced way back when in Tekken Tag 1, and the Light of Sirius is essentially a more lethal version of the Kazama healing ability. Or at the very least it was until Jun started shooting projectiles and using Hakai. We all expected Claudio to play a big role in Tekken 8's story as either an ally or an obstacle for Jin to overcome, and he's relevant for one scene where he charges up an attack like Piccolo did in the Saiyan Saga, and then he gets hit with a laser. Great use of this character. He got more to do in the Patchy Slot spin-off for fuck's sake. During this fight, Kazuya had a move called Instant Win. If you somehow forgot, anyone with the Devil Gene is a planet-level threat. Kazuya can shoot lasers that travel from Earth to space in a short period of time and can destroy satellites. He can fly, shoot spirit bombs, can breathe in space, and has the ability to summon weapons and chains. So really he should one-shot these losers and go after Jin, but apparently his favorite graph is fuck around and find out. I have to question why it took so long for Claudio to shoot this arrow. Remember how fast he shot it in T7? Look at his character ending with Azazel. He shot it and summoned chains to bind him in an instant. Kazuya gets hit by the arrow, but it amounts to nothing. It didn't help Jin in the final fight, and Kazuya could still transform into his devil form. So what the fuck was the point of Claudio's entire character? Remove him and nothing about the story changes. Literally nothing. When he got hit by this laser, Victor and Elisa were doing nothing and they just stood there. Why didn't they teleport him or fly him out of there? Victor saved Reina's bitch ass, so why not Claudio? Not that it matters, cause the credits showcase that he somehow survived. It doesn't even stop there though. Why the hell was Panda not helping Xiaoyu during the ambush at Yakushima? How the hell is Ling able to destroy multiple Jack 7s? Remember what happened whenever Heihachi fought inferior models in Tekken 5 and 7? How were any of the cast members able to beat multiple Jack 7s when King struggled to beat a single one? He was struggling to fight a single one in Tekken 7 until he used Armor King and Marduk's techniques. How the hell is Lars able to damage True Devil Kazuya and tank lasers when he struggled against Base Kazuya in Tekken 6? If you're Heihachi's child, shouldn't you have an ascended form? Shouldn't you be using it in this moment? It would come in handy. Why the hell is Panda still doing nothing when Lars arrives? How the hell did Lily and Asuka take out Jack 8 if Xiaoyu struggled to beat multiple Jack 7s and Elisa couldn't beat Jack 8 on her own? Why do Brian and Yoshimitsu disappear from the story after their tournament fight and don't try to help either side? Yoshimitsu knows about the Mishima family drama and told Xiaoyu about it in T5. Does he just not care to help? Why is every character in the series immune to getting blown up? How did Kazuya's laser not disintegrate everyone here when it blew up satellites? Why is he not using his spirit bomb when he arrives on the battlefield? If Reina is able to tank hits from Jin's base form, and Jin beat up Ogre, does that mean that Reina is stronger than Ogre, Lars, and Jin's base form? Why didn't Claudio use his power when Kazuya captured Zafina or when he was fighting Azazel? Why not kill two birds with one stone? These aren't even nitpicks because of their impacts on the plot. If Kazuya, Claudio, or any character on this roster use their brain, the story fucking ends. I'm not even trying to be an asshole. I just want them to be consistent with the rules that they themselves established. When you write your villain to be this stupidly OP without setting up the idea that their arrogance leads to their downfall, if they don't use the plethora of stupidly OP abilities that they have at their disposal, you end up making them look like a massive dumbass for not ending the conflict in an instant. Bad enough you made Kazuya a bland character, but now you gotta make him a stupid-ass villain. Angel has been completely removed from the series, and Jun is barely in the story besides her giving Jin a power-up. So Kazuya gets no interactions with her despite having a good special intro with her. He doesn't encounter her at all in this game until the post-credit scene where she just walks to his unconscious body. What the fuck even was the point of bringing her back if you're not gonna do anything with her? Outside of fans begging for her to make a return, what was the point of bringing her back if you're not going to do anything with what is currently a really bland character? Look, I get it, Jun's a mother figure and Tekken has its whole ideal of motherhood, but do you want to know what the problem with that is? We already had a character who represented that idea and Kazuya's humanity. Jun has no character of which to speak and is just good for the sake of being good. There's nothing wrong with having a character be a symbol or represent an ideal, but in order to make that character work, you have to have that ideal challenged and reaffirmed throughout the story. Really, Jun was heavily underutilized in this game, and she didn't amount to anything besides being a plot device to have Jin tame his devil. The Kazama healing power that made her relevant isn't even mentioned. And she's just this bland character who is absolutely good. If she's aware of the events from T3 up to now, why on earth would she think that she could save Kazuya? Why would you never send a Force Ghost to him like you did to Jin? Jun's not a bad character for her concept, but it's the way that she's written. Her ultimate goal is to have a happy family with two men that were content with human genocide. Really, she was marketed and utilized no differently than Kazumi was in the previous game. She's a part of a mystical clan with an unexplained power, she has a family tree that's irrelevant, and she has a nursery rhyme that we've never heard about before that tells us nothing. All of the marketing wouldn't shut up about the return of Jun, but they did nothing with her. This was the main gimmick they used to get butts in the seats. So I guess it's just popular now to flat out lie to the audience. What makes this whole thing worse is that we don't even learn what happened to her. Well, not through the main story anyway. There was a certain video going around Twitter that follows up an idea that was presented in her character episode, about how after Ogre attacked and knocked out Jin, she led the creature to a mystical Kazama cave, where she had laid in a coma for years and just woke up after the story had ended, and this is going to be followed up on in a DLC. Which isn't even a unique idea because Jun being put into a slumber and awakening for a future plot was just ripped from the Tekken Forever comic. But that doesn't matter to me, and that doesn't fix the issue with her in this game. I shouldn't have to consume supplemental material in order to make sense of her story in this game. Plus, said material doesn't fix how underutilized she was. Considering you made people wait 29 years for this character to come back and your explanation for her absence is that she just fell asleep, it clearly showed that you didn't know what to do with her or that you didn't even want to fucking use her. The falling asleep explanation also puts into question the vision that Jin had of her in T4, but whatever. I also have to question why she would send Jin to live with Heihachi when he's directly responsible for Kazuya's death. You can sense the devil, but not the fact that Heihachi's public image is an act. Jun's inclusion felt as though they did it out of fear of looking stupid because why the hell would you not involve her when the main plot is about her son and husband fighting, as opposed to wanting to do something significant with this character? It feels like a massive waste of time for the writers, the voice actress, and the fans. But still, it could always be worse. If you want to know how to truly waste a character, look no further than Asuka Kazama, the worst character in Tekken. There's my second hot take. Asuka is a character that everyone universally agrees that she sucks, and to the surprise of no one, it boils down to bad writing. People have been waiting for her to do something interesting since her T5 ending. But she ended up getting trapped in a ripoff of Sakura and Karin's rivalry from Street Fighter. There was a scene that made me lose my shit when I saw it, and cemented how little of a shit Namco really gave about this character. So, Asuka, Xiaoyu, and Panda and Jin, they were all sitting in Lily's plane, right? And then Lily pulls up a graph of the Kazama family tree. During this scene, she and Jin were sitting a few feet away from each other, and they don't even look at each other or talk to each other. This entire scene was like 2 fucking minutes, and he When I got sent the link to all the cutscenes on Discord, I died laughing at this scene. Asuka got a whole 3 minutes of screen time in this 2-hour-long story mode, excluding the gameplay, and you don't get to play as her at all. And the only scenes that she's in involve Lily because yes, 3 fucking games later, she's still just Lily's bitch.
Oh, dog. Oh my god, dog.
That actually is pretty funny.
She had less of an impact on the plot than fucking Lily, which isn't even unique because Lily's role was just taken from Karin's role in SF5. Subtlety really isn't their strong suit, is it? At this point, it's been documented by pretty much everyone in the community how Asuka's been wasted, but this reached a new low that just blew my fucking mind. Compared to how deep Jin's arc was, they really did not do the side characters justice. And speaking of the side characters, the biggest complaint that everyone, myself included, had about Tekken's story up until this point is how the side characters would get shafted and had lackluster stories compared to that of the Mishima family. The only answer Namco had to their Mishima problem is to make more Mishimas who would never be relevant besides their debut game. People were happy looking at the trailers for Tekken 8 because the side characters made an appearance within the story mode, but that on its own never mattered to me. I don't care if the side characters appear in the story if their inclusion isn't worthwhile. If they're just glorified cameos and don't impact the plot in any way or add anything to Jin's arc, they might as well not even appear. While there was an effort to make their inclusion worthwhile, it ultimately wasn't satisfying. Lars, at this point, is just a major side character with no character of which to speak. His character was meant to be a contrast to the Mishima family in that he retained his humanity despite the losses that he suffered. This fed in with the overall theme of Tekken 6's story with the themes of loss and revenge. That aspect of his character was abandoned and he never mentions his squad again after they all died on his watch. I hinted at this earlier, but Lars and by extension Lee being all buddy-buddy with Jin is a character assassination. It's an assassination on both their ends, and it isn't consistent with the previous games. When Jin became the head of the Zaibatsu, he was included in Lee's endings of abusing the Mishima family. Lars should hate Jin's guts for all of the reasons mentioned prior, and he should be the main one who challenges Jin's claims of Kazuya being pure evil, considering he knows the truth of Jin's plan from T6. Honestly, Lars was already assassinated in the last game because in T6 he shot Heihachi on sight and said he would kill him the next time they met, only for him to claim that the world is a worse place without him by the end of T7. I also have to question why Lars never once made a move against Heihachi before, since he was a part of the Tekken force and he's around Jin's age. Lars is also now being treated as Heihachi's successor, going as far as to recreate the standoff against Kazuya, word for word, bar for bar, and of course we got this little gem.
Dead. However, a man carrying on his bloodline and ambitions is trying to face off against the devil as a human.
I refuse to believe for a second that Lars would even consider honoring the legacy of a known murderer, child abuser, and rapist. Fuck you. Before I continue, I want to talk a little bit about Jin and Eddie's special intro. I feel like this kind of dynamic is what they were going for between Jin and Lars, but this dynamic can only work if it comes at the end and or middle of Jin's redemption arc and not the beginning of it. Though still, Eddie's dialogue with Devil Jin is a bit on the nose with the theme of acceptance, and he should still hold a grudge against Kazuya since at most it's been a year since T4. And we've hated people for less and have held grudges for petty reasons, but whatever, subtlety and consistency is for chumps. Near the end of the video I'm going to make suggestions on how this all could have been improved, but let's focus on the topic at hand. I appreciate that an effort was made to integrate side characters into the main story, but lingering writing issues from the previous games still remain. Look no further than the stupid, contrived fight between Law and Paul. During the war for the fate of the planet, Paul and Law get into a spat because Paul spent Law's cut of the tournament money from before. Wait, hold the fuck up. Martial Law, the Bruce Lee homage, is willing to work for the devil himself over a fucking paycheck. And you wonder why there's a rumor that Bruce Lee's family doesn't want him in any more games. Can't be Liu Kang's fault because even when he got assassinated in MKX, he's still one of the most respected characters in Mortal Kombat. Plus, he's a god now, so it has to be Tekken's fault, the series notorious for making Bruce Lee a joke. How hard was it to make Law's motivation behind this fight to fund his son's hospital bills? Why couldn't you just say that Kazuya used Law the same way that Jin used Eddie? Promising to reimburse his family if he fights for him and try to have him convince Paul to join their side. We could tie into the theme from Paul's ending from T4 where he refuses to compromise who he is as a person for success. You know, just treat your fucking side characters with respect for once. Oh, but Tekken's never had a deep story. Tekken 2 literally had a satanic ritual ring in the intro of the game. And the main story is about a boy making a deal with the devil to kill his father. A Velociraptor being a playable character in 1995 doesn't excuse when the characters act like retards. Fuck off. Every character in the game just feels like a shell of their former self. Lily wanted Jin dead in T6, but now she's willing to work with him, no questions asked. And no conflict between the two. Zafina despised Jin in T6 for the war and awakening Azazel, only for her to call him the hope of humanity. Which contradicts her special intro at Xiaoyu, by the way. The writing from the special intros is inconsistent with the cutscenes. There should be some sort of conflict with the characters during the war. King's Orphanage had a lot of children come in because of the war that Jin started. Lars was on live fucking television when Jin declared war, yet everyone trusts him and is willing to work with him, no questions asked. We aren't going to follow up on that? Or how Lars stood by when Heihachi killed Kazuya in T2? Or when Heihachi was hunting Jin in T4? It was the war that Jin started that made you question your morality? Seriously? Steve suffered a great deal because of the Zaibatsu and should hate Jin because of his ties to it. They should by extension hate Heihachi because of what he's done despite his backstory. This isn't that hard to set up. Leroy still hates Heihachi and by extension Kazuya for what happened to New York, so they won't sweep that under the rug, but will ignore all of the other horrendous shit that he did throughout the series. You can have a line where the characters mention that they hate Jin, but they know that the alternative is worse, so they're willing to fight with him. It's more realistic than everyone just brushing off World War III. But I am so glad they brought Shaheen back, even though he contributed absolutely fucking nothing to the story, or how Azucena works for the devil to promote her shitty coffee brand. They were so well used and deserved the roster spot so much more than Miguel. That was such a great choice. I feel like my intelligence is being insulted. You cannot tell me that no one faced any consequences for their actions by the end of this story. Azucena, Dragunov, Feng, and Law should be locked up for assisting Kazuya. Claudio and Lars should be fucking dead, and Zafina and Xiaoyu should have long-lasting scars. It feels like an episode of Family Guy to where everything just resets by the end of the story. Why is Hwoarang telling Jin to accept his devil power when he got thrashed by Devil Jin in Tekken 5 and 6? His ending in Tekken 6 had him reject Azazel's power because he didn't want to become like Devil Jin. Does anyone read what they fucking write? My god! Why does Asuka want Jin to be protected? You literally had the goal of taking him down in Tekken 6. So we won't retcon her rivalry with Feng, but her entire motivation in the 6th game gets to change? Oh wait, but Fang's not the chosen one or whatever bullshit, so of course. The use of side characters was an improvement over the previous games, but I wonder if they would have been treated better if they didn't have to share screen time with Namco's latest character whose story they were clearly more interested in. Reina's a complete jackass who does nothing the whole game except stand around thinking to herself about the things she'll want to do, but never actually do them. Man, Reina is so cool. She has purple hair and electrics. I just want her to step on me. She's so cool. Ugh. I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. I do not like Reina, nor do I think she's an interesting character at all. The problem with Reina is she's a part of a mystery that we, the audience, already solved. Even if the roster leaks didn't happen, it was made so incredibly obvious that she was Heihachi's daughter from the trailer alone. Plus we had this brain-dead tweet from Harada. She's such a bland character for what's supposed to be the main villain of the next game. Quick insert, Nina is a shit character that does nothing but work for the Mishimas to the point of it being comedic. If you want to know how to make this character less shit, Gizo Katai and the Force Snake made suggestions on their own Tekken 7 videos. Anyways, back to this tramp. She's an early 2000s goth chick, whose design is completely ripped off of Big Hero 6 by the way, who pales in comparison to her badass father. But Daredevil, you hate Heihachi. Fuck you, I hate how he was written like a bitch in Tekken 7. We went from this to this. Wow, what a great and intimidating villain. Did you see the scene where Reina copied Heihachi's rage art word for word, bar for bar? I did! I clapped! I clapped when I saw it! I love Tekken! I know what that is!
It broke new ground!
She's a shitty fan-made character with unearned power and story significance like Kalen Khalifa from Dragon Ball Super and has one of the most out-of-pocket endings I've seen. Her ending consists of her stripping Kazuya of his shirt, tying him in chains, making him get on his knees, and then proceeding to step on him multiple times while talking to him like a dog, and then it's revealed that she was fantasizing about doing this to Kazuya before their tournament fight. No, seriously, pause the music. Who the fuck at Bandai Namco has this shitty sexual fetish for this character and is injecting this shit into the game? What kind of shitty femdom garbage ending is this? Endings where the Mishimas abuse each other in gruesome and comedic ways is nothing new to Tekken, but I did not expect to look at a fucking Pornhub ad. I'd hate to be that guy, but if the roles were reversed and Kazuya was fantasizing about doing this to a female character, people would raise an eyebrow. Look no further than Marduk's Tekken 5 interlude as an example. The only thing more fucked up than this was Sindel's chapter in MK11 Aftermath, where after she beats up the Cage family, she tells Johnny that he and Sonya will be imprisoned to be breeding slaves. Jesus fucking Christ. You fucked up when your character is comparable to MK11 Sindel. Reina doesn't even feel like a real character. She feels like a parody of a Mishima. She comes out of nowhere, is, supposedly, a high school chick, has unearned story significance and power, has a basic twist of being pretty but evil, and she turns into a devil by the end of the game because they treat it like a Mishima exclusive trait. Jin, Lee, and Kazuya are all brain-dead idiots because they can't recognize Heihachi's techniques, and Jin brings Reina with him and no one questions her for a second. Remember when Kazuya and the others encountered a Mishima in Tekken 6? Aside from the lazy writing, you may wonder what it is that I dislike about this character so much. This character is the physical embodiment of the thing that is holding Tekken's story back. The fact that Bandai Namco refuses to let the story move the fuck on. Heihachi is dead and once Kazuya is taken out, the conflict is over? Can't have that. Let's shoehorn in more children from the old man to keep milking the story. I don't care if Reina is the main villain in Tekken 9 because they didn't give me a reason to care about her in this game, and they left her story so ambiguous because they themselves don't even know what the fuck they're doing with her. Her entire existence can be summarized with a Twitter meme. Ouchie, ouchie? Get out of my face with that garbage. Let me ask you, assuming the series doesn't reboot the same way Soul Calibur did, how many people will you think will care about the story by then? This isn't the MCU. I'm so sick of the Mishimas and their fucking drama in every single goddamn game. Kazuya's character died with him in T2, Jin's character flew off back in T4, and Heihachi was butchered in 7. I can't entirely blame the characters because it's not their fault, it's the writer's fault. Aside from the gameplay and the horny losers this character was made for, I have to question what makes this character so appealing to people. The last time we got a random Mishima out of nowhere with Lars, everyone called him a shitty Gary Stu. While the criticisms towards him are valid, Namco still attempted to give him a character in T6. A man who retained his humanity in the face of loss. As cringe as his relationship with Lisa is, Lars still showcased that there were things worth fighting for in Tekken's world. Also, Devil Reina. I don't care. And I don't understand how the hell she has it. The Azazel explanation makes no sense. The only way that Azazel can exist in physical form is if there's enough hatred and conflict within the world. His character is meant to represent the sins of humanity, but if Azazel is the reason why devils exist and the devil forms are just servants and not their own thing, what the fuck was the point of the Hachijo clan in Tekken 7? Kazumi claimed that they eradicate people who will become threats to the world, but this makes no sense if her creator can only exist with evil in the world to begin with.
存在になる。何の夢を見ている。故に今死を与えるのだ。まだわからぬか。なぜ我がこの家に嫁いだのか。まさか。我ら八条家は貴様のような人間を消すために太古から存在しておる。
If Azazel is the cause of the devil, why is it called the Devil Gene? And why did Tekken 7 say that Kazuya inherited it from Kazumi? How do you put another servant in your child? In the original version of the story, when Kazuya and Jun had Jin, he wasn't born with the devil. He had to be branded by devil before the third tournament. How come the entire Mishima family has Azazel exclusive demons, but Jinpachi was just taken over by a random ghost? Just how many evil entities are there in Tekken? It's not an evil spirit from Soul Calibur because they haven't done anything with the shared universe aside from Yoshimitsu. If the devil comes from Azazel and it's once again a supernatural thing and not a genetic thing, how the hell was Kazuya able to tame devil with science experiments? I would like to remind everyone, what was the point of devil in Tekken? The pursuit of power and revenge and all that shit. So now you're meaning to tell me that it's a curse from this random creature that then fizzles out into a genetic infection that completely removes all of Kazuya's agency because he's not responsible for accepting the devil's power, he was just cursed with it. How come we've only got to see his and Jin's internal struggles? How was Reina able to activate her devil with no problems? All other holders of the devil gene went through hell trying to use their power. Why does Jin get an angel form after he tames his devil? Remember when Kazuya tamed it? Didn't go so well for him. Why didn't Jun bring Kazuya to this mystical Kazama forest during their moment of intimacy that's most likely responsible for Jin taming his devil? You would have solved it right then and there. How come Devil exclusively brands Jin with a tattoo? Did he just think that it would look cool? These are the kinds of questions I'm forced to ask because they keep changing shit and never think about what they're changing. I swear, Azazel being shoehorned into the story is the same level of garbage writing as Kronika and the Titans being showcased in MK11. People now think that the devil forms are lame and they're tired of them, which is a shame because they can be really cool if handled right. People don't know this because they never played the older games or they never went back to them, but Devil in the older games was a complete menace. That guy did not give a fuck. Whenever he was on screen, you were in for the fight of your life. He was a terrifying entity to witness in action, both gameplay and in story. Imagine if in the final fight of Tekken 8, your screen darkened and you saw this in Unreal 5 graphics. This shit gave people nightmares back in the 90s. Hey, Harada? Adding spikes and textures doesn't make the form look cool, it looks goofy. Feels like I'm looking at an MCU costume. Stop it. Azazel is such a half-assed character not only because he keeps losing all of his fights, but because he lacks the presence that Devil originally had. All of the promotional material, the character portraits, his bio, it made it clear that this was a force of nature, a malevolent being only interested in prolonging its own life. I'm not going to dive too deep into Devil and Angel because I have plans for future coverage, but I imagine that Devil was the inspiration for the Soul Edge blade from Soul Calibur, possessing people at their lowest points, causing chaos and leaving death in its wake. Devil was never meant to have a character, nor was he this shallow showcase of humanity's sins. He was meant to be a metaphor for what happens when you dedicate your life to absolute strength, when you give in to the worst aspects of yourself. Angel was the opposite of that. She shows what happens when you let others help you. And the whole thing of motherhood, but I don't feel like repeating myself. Even when they gave Devil dialogue in T4, they made it a point to showcase that he was a higher power. For instance, whenever a character refers to themselves as I in Japanese, they say Orewa. But when Devil speaks about himself, he says Warewa. In fiction, Ware is only used for ancient beings, gods, kings, and figures that are meant to be important. Ancient beings and gods, you say? People can claim all they want that Tekken's story has never been serious and that it's always been goofy, but they clearly don't know what they're talking about. The story's a lot darker than people realize. Kazuya was in a pretty messed up position to where he either made a deal with the devil and lived for revenge, or to die right then and there. Devil manipulated a child at his lowest point in order to restore his own existence. And he would have gotten away with it had Kazuya not died by the end of T2. Devil then went on to go and infect Jinpachi. If you really want to know how messy this whole thing with Devil and Tekken's story has gotten, I recommend this Tekken Reddit thread. But to give you the abridged version, 1994. Devil is a secret palette swap for Kazuya that is unlocked by completing the Galaga minigame. 1995. Devil is introduced as the final boss of Tekken 2. It's revealed that Kazuya made a deal with him for power to kill his father. Angel is the being that represents Kazuya's humanity and battles with Devil to save Kazuya's soul. 1997. The term Devil Factor is scrapped from Tekken 3's story. Jin Kazama is introduced as Kazuya's son and is branded by Devil before the third tournament. Devil Jin awakens after Jin is betrayed by Heihachi. 2001. The Devil Gene is introduced as the new explanation for Jin and Kazuya's devil power, and Kazuya is able to tame the devil due to science experiments conducted on him by G Corporation. 2004. Jinpachi Mishima is introduced and has the Devil Gene himself. Many lines that detail his backstory are changed in the domestic release of Tekken 5. 2007/2008. Tekken 6's art book claims that Jinpachi was the first Mishima to have the Devil Gene. Azazel is introduced as a creature who had a link to the Devil Gene and is killed by Jin. 2010/2013. Harada does several Q&As on Twitter and changes crucial aspects to Tekken's story. These include Jinpachi's Devil Gene, Kazuya loving Jun, and Angel's existence. 2017. Azazel is only mentioned twice within Tekken 7 story mode. Kazumi and the Hachisho clan are introduced as the new explanation of the Devil Gene. Despite this, Kazumi cannot control her inner devil and claims that the power will consume and kill her. She lacks a final devil form like Kazuya has, and her clan has a nursery rhyme telling the demon to be gone, despite the Hachisho clan using the devil to kill potential threats to the world. The statement of Jinpachi having his mind being taken over by Devil is removed from Tekken Tag 2 and Tekken 7's gallery modes. And finally, 2024. Azazel reclaims his status as the explanation for the Devil Gene. He first appeared before an ancient man and created devils as his servants. Holders of the Devil Gene have only a fraction of Azazel's power, even though Jin claimed in T6 that you need to have the Devil Gene in order to kill him. Despite being the origin of the Devil Gene, Azazel has never once won a fight in the entire series, and the Devil can still exist when he's absent in spirit and physical form. You know that your writing is sloppy when you can't even explain how the main plot point of this series can even exist. God forbid we have a consistent story with characters interacting like real people, or that we have an actual debate between the protagonist and the antagonist that goes somewhere, or that the protagonist actually faces the consequences of his actions. Because you see, dear viewer, Tekken has always been silly and has never had an impactful story since a Velociraptor was a playable character in 1995. The characters should thus be brain-dead idiots. It was so much more important to implement shitty microtransactions and fuck with people's livelihoods for cosmetics that should have been in the game already. You know, like, this whole fucking thing with T8 has been, like, such a shit show. Like, this part isn't even scripted. Like, I just thought about this, like, while I was sitting down. It's ironic how this game's whole theme is about acceptance, you know, and overcome your past and this shit. But Namco can't accept their past by using the flaws of the previous games in order to improve their story. It's just fucking ironic. Like, they just keep pretending that the bad aspects of the previous stories just didn't exist, instead of using those aspects in order to enhance this current story. Like Jin killing all those people, like, not even fucking mentioning it in the game. Instead, they just keep reusing the exact same fucking clip from Tekken 6's intro of Jin just doing the salute to all the soldiers. Fucking hell, man. It's just a mess. It really makes you wonder, why? Why did this story get so much praise? Why do people think that this is the best story in a Tekken game? Not even just Tekken, the best story in a fighting game. What did this game do to deserve this much praise? I'm not backtracking on the statement I made in part 1 because this game did have good ideas, but good concepts and themes alone a good story does not make. Every issue I have with this game is the exact same issue I had with Tekken 7. The narrator wasn't the only reason why Tekken 7's story was such a failure. The writing was. Tekken 8 no doubt has a better story than 7's, and it's not as offensive as Tekken 7's story. But at the same time, when I break this story down, it's just not very good. There are so many things that distract me from loving this story, like how Kazuya is prevented by the writers from killing anybody. Inconsistent utilization of devil powers is something that all of these games are plagued with, but 6 games later, this becomes so distracting. Kazuya is strong enough to blow up an island. You're telling me he can't handle some chumps in hand-to-hand combat? I'm talking in circles, but this story is so frustrating to sit through because the ideas are so good, but they're so poorly delivered. This game had the potential to have a better story than Tekken 4, there's my second hot take, but in order for that story to be a reality, it needed a stronger writing team to deliver it, and unfortunately Tekken 8 didn't get that. Then, after the first chapter set up the idea that Jin couldn't just punch his way into beating Kazuya and Jun told Jin to save him, how does Jin beat Kazuya? By punching him out, and he doesn't try to save him. I mean, the final fight was cool, I guess? Wouldn't be a modern Tekken story if there wasn't a final fight with big dumb explosions and over-designed devil forms. There are so many questions that people had going into Tekken 8, like Akuma and Kazumi's backstory and the Hachisho clan. But instead, Namco raised more questions than they actually answered. But honestly, after thinking about it for a while, I don't want any of those questions answered. Nor at this point, nor do I really care. I'll never forget learning about this series for the first time. It was goofy, it was wacky and weird, but I loved it and I can tell that the people making it actually gave a shit. I remember spending my middle school and high school years learning the lore and learning about the characters, learning how to play the game for the first time. I remember going back to the older games, getting T5 for the first time, learning how to play Tag 2 in Season 1 of Tekken 7. Hell, I remember thinking that Tekken 7 had a solid story at one point, and I remember seeing the T4 endings for the first time and seeing how special they were. But they've never been able to recreate that magic. The story has been on a consistent downward spiral since 2001, and honestly, that's really sad. Characters, stories, and their worlds, they need to evolve over time, and Tekken's story is so repetitive and just so goddamn annoying to sit through. You already know which character is going to be wasted before the story even starts. You know that the main villain is never going to achieve a victory before the story starts. You know that none of your favorite characters are going to accomplish anything in favor of a new Mishima before the story starts. You know that one of, or many of your favorite characters are going to get done dirty in a really disrespectful and stupid way before the story starts. You know that ultimately none of the lore matters because of how sloppy the writing is and everything is so incredibly subject to change. It just makes the whole story feel so pointless. What's the point of me being invested in this franchise if anything that I like about it will be changed on a whim? For a company with a 30-year-old franchise that likes to beat its own meat about how they have the longest ongoing story in fighting games, the story really doesn't seem to matter to these guys. How do you ask your audience to be taken seriously and then you have crap like this?
Pay up, jerk!
Shut up! There's none left! Shut up with all the talk about money! I'll never pay you!
He makes it sound like it's no big deal! You will pay me! Money is justice!
It's like I'm watching CW Flash all over again. If there is any saving grace, there is the final chapter. Despite how unearned Jin's angel form is and how the final fight is just Battle of Gods with less interesting characters, there are some strong thematics here. At the beginning of the game, Kazuya claimed that Jin lacked determination and that he denied himself. He can see the flaws within Jin's character, but he can't see his own hypocrisy. Kazuya has never accepted the Devil's power. Not really. He accepts the strength that it gives him, but he's never accepted Devil as an entity. He robbed Devil of his free will, the same way he did to Azazel earlier in the game. Kazuya has never confronted his own hatred, the worst aspects of himself, and has lost everyone he cared about. It's as if there are two sides of the same coin. One using force as a means to an end to achieve his own goal, and the other trusting and working with others in order to achieve it. Which is why, in the final fight, Jin defeats Kazuya, if you ignore Kazuya's ending, which is actually the worst one he's ever had in the series. Because a world that has his ideal of absolute power isn't a world worth living in. We then get an ending, while kinda cheesy and unearned. I kinda like it. We end on a brighter note with Jin riding off into the sunset with Xiaoyu, and we get to see the other characters living their daily lives. Tekken 8 is a real mixed bag for me. It's not a terrible story or some irredeemable mess that destroys the series. Believe me, there's much worse haunting my thoughts and my dreams. Ugh. But at the same time, when you pick the story apart, it's just not very good. It's really frustrating how this story has gotten off on the fact that it's a mere improvement of Tekken 7, because if this trend continues, we'll just end up getting weaker and weaker stories. And then it will get into the point where the series is completely unrecognizable. We've seen what unearned praise for spectacle-focused stories has done to Mortal Kombat. There were plenty of nice gameplay shakeups, and I do hope that Namco continues to try new things with their story modes, and that they take more risks, and that for the next project, whether it's Tekken or Soul Calibur, they learn from the mistakes of this game and avoid them. Looking at the flaws of this game's story is frustrating because you can see the pieces for a great story mode, but it's bogged down by the writers not taking their time. Tekken 8 fails to properly communicate Jin's redemption in a believable and satisfying way by having every character forgive him before the game even starts. We still have the irritating comedy bits for the sidecast. They lack depth and they all act like idiots. Our villain is written to be a complete joke as he never uses his instant KO moves to end the conflict. And even when he does, he's outright prevented by the writers from killing anyone. Asuka is still heavily underutilized and wasted despite the obvious narrative significance she should have. Reina's inclusion was incredibly forced and she exists solely to extend the story. She lacks character and the presence that her father had. The game is incredibly dishonest, removing characters who suffered a great deal because of Jin. Despite what interesting interactions we could have had in assassinating the ones who we do have that are currently on the roster because writing a protagonist with flaws that gets called out for them is too difficult for the writers. The dynamic that Eddie and Jin have in their special intro should have been how everyone else in the story is written towards Jin, obviously with more depth compared to a brief intro. The last two games have had stories glorifying two men who abuse their positions of power. They expect us to sympathize with people who are child abusers and unapologetic murderers while punishing the abused further reaction to that constant abuse. Kazuya is punished not only by getting treated as a punching bag, but by being written as an irredeemable villain. They've gone out of their way to strip away his humanity with numerous retcons and flat-out bad writing. Jin's arc and the overall story ultimately feels so pointless as every character reached the destination the writers needed before we booted up the game. All sense of logic and common sense was abandoned for the sake of the story they wanted to tell. They wanted that final scene so bad that they sacrificed everything in order to get there. If Namco was going to bring back Jun after fans requested her to come back, they could have had the ideal that she represents be put to the forefront and truly challenged. Kazumi was the antithesis of the ideal of motherhood being nurturing, and Jun could have been the reaffirmation of it. Instead of ripping off of shonen for their tropes and spectacle for fan service moments, take inspiration for the writing these shows are known for. Have a scene similar to Naruto's vision of Minato during the Pain arc, where Jin questions why Jun would send him to live with Heihachi after all of his crimes, why she never told him about his parentage and that he had a demon living inside of him. Let her face the repercussions of abandoning her duty of stopping Kazuya for the sake of her selfish love. She could see the immense love that Jin had for her, and how that love has led him down the path that he currently follows. She could see the damage that her absence has caused to her son and how he's been contorted and used by everyone around him. Where every other parental figure had tried to use Jin for their own gain, Heihachi seeing him as a tool to kill Ogre and later as a way to gain immortality, Kazuya seeing him as a way to gain more power, or Lee and Lars seeing him as a convenient answer to end the war, Jun would simply see him as her son and the boy that she abandoned. Saying the words as simple as, "You're not a monster, I'm sorry, and I love you." Jin would finally have someone in his life who sees him as a person. This could have been what leads Jin to fall in love with Xiaoyu. Where everyone else saw Jin as the devil's son or the man who brought the world to hell, Ling would see him for who he is, and not for what he did. This could have led to Jin appreciating life and loving others and himself for once. To grab further inspiration from Naruto, have a scene where Jin confronts the worst aspects of himself in the form of Devil Jin, or Jin in his Emperor outfit from T6. This Tyler Durden would berate Jin throughout the story, taunting him for believing that he can change and that what he does makes a difference. Let him question how Jin is different from Kazuya, or how from the monster that took his mother away from him. Jin could be taken over by Devil Jin for a chapter or two until he's purified by Asuka and Jin coming together and accepting their Kazama heritage. You could have the spirit of Jun there, Broly's second coming style if you wanted to make the moment epic. And finally, Jin would find his answer to how he's different from Kazuya. Where Kazuya had taken Heihachi's place in light of his absence, proving definitively that Kazuya isn't more than what he suffered, Jin would push past his trauma with the help of the people around him. Kazuya would adopt Heihachi's belief of absolute strength being the one and only truth about the world, where Jin would have to learn that true strength comes from within. The experiences that made you who you are today, and accepting the help of others is what it means to truly be strong. Use the writing that shonen is known for to enhance the story, instead of trying to get off on shallow fan service, you sloppy writers. Give Lars some actual character development. He and Jin could start the story off at odds, Lars undermining Jin's efforts at every single turn. Questioning Jin what made him care about humanity when he was so quick to dismiss everyone in T6, but after seeing Jin risk his neck for everyone time and time again, let Lars see that Jin is trying to change. Heihachi was unable to trust anyone because Kazumi's betrayal hurt him so badly. While Lars won't forgive Jin outright, they're not there yet, have him learn to trust Jin throughout the story mode and to accept his help, accepting that if Lars was in a similar situation, he might have done the same thing as Jin. Heihachi and Kazuya were the previous generation and they fell into despair. Jin and Lars are the future and they would break the curse of hatred from their family. Have Jin and Jun come together and try to redeem Kazuya, the man who's been engulfed in darkness. Have Jin and Lars learn about Reina's heritage and try to save her from the curse of their family. Let her re-evaluate the man that she currently idolizes. Let the cycle of hatred end. Provide some depth to Paul and Law's fight. Law is fighting for his son, to look proud in front of his family by being able to provide for them, but in order for him to reach that point, he compromises who he is. Law would try to tempt Paul, citing their similar situations of being complete failures as justification to sin, only for Paul to showcase his true character and his inner strength by refusing to abandon who he is for success. Let the characters interact like people. Take your time with the story and treat your characters with care. Have your spectacle moments. Have the over-designed devil forms and DBZ fights, but gradually build up to that point. Instead of constantly retconning in favor of a new story you want to tell or abandoning aspects of the previous games that people responded negatively to, rework them in order to enhance the current story. Take your time and create something special for the people who just want to press buttons and for the people who care about the story. I respect Tekken 8 for its concepts, and I don't think that it's an irredeemable mess, but it is so frustrating seeing what this game could have been as opposed to what it currently is. As frustrated as I've gotten, these videos have been fun to make, and it was fun going through this series, seeing the good and the bad that Tekken has to offer. After years of stories about sons trying to kill their fathers, we can finally move on. Hopefully Namco strikes gold in what Tekken 9's story mode. Upon watching my videos and seeing how negative they are, a few of my online friends asked me why I would make them if I disliked the story so badly. I didn't make these videos to poke fun at Namco, even though that's really easy in light of their recent actions, nor did I do it for any sort of clout. These videos were made because they're opinions I've had for the longest, but more than anything, I made these videos because of the fact that the Tekken series is very special to a lot of people, and it deserves respect. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you all enjoyed.